Hello there, YouTube. It is Charles here with another edition of Comics and Talk. And today I want to talk about the first Spawn book I ever read. I was going to do this as a normal review video, but I felt like going over it just more casually and not giving a objectional fact base or review, but really wanted to share my personal bias and what got me into collecting Spawn. When I first started collecting back in 2019, I didn't really get into the hobby because of fandom from a major Marvel or DC character. I got into it from the community. This great little comic book store that I happened on when I was doing a toy hunt, and the people were so friendly and welcoming that I started hanging out there. And you start hanging out around comics, you're going to want to make a purchase. And the first books I purchased were a lot of them from Dynamite Comics because they have a lot of familiar properties to my age bracket. Your Red Sonja, um, Army of Darkness, Deja Thor's, John Carter. I could go on, Shaft. So many popular titles that really spoke to my sensibilities. And I didn't get into mainstream DC, Marvel, or even Image Comics until maybe a year or so into collecting. And the first thing that I got drawn to were books with strong female protagonists. And a lot of guys that will try to tell you some kind of altruistic motive of why they love powerful women in print. I'm going to be honest with you. It's hot women, scantily clad, swinging swords, and beating people up. It was just, it's nice to look at, entertaining, and fun stories. And so that's why I got it. That's why I started with Red Sonja, and then another series I got into right off was Jennifer Blood and Vampirella. That is a big one, still a big part of my collection. Everything currently except for the Christopher Priest stuff. I personally don't like his style, but the man is a legend in the comic industry, so don't let my personal preference taint your enjoyment of his stuff. I'm just an old nerd with a YouTube channel. But, oh yeah, and by the way, I like to listen to jazz concerts in the background while I do these little talks. This is a Freddie Hubbard concert from, I think, Berlin in 1985, featuring Kenny Garrett on saxophone. Very hip stuff. But back to how I got into Image Comics. I really like I said, strong female protagonists. And then as I started thinking about my nephews and even myself, I wanted to see more stuff that represented me. I am obviously African American, part of the Pan African diaspora, as you can probably tell by my flag. And my nephews, they are mixed heritage, Latino and African American. And so I wanted to get them books that they could relate to and find some stuff I could relate to myself. And by happenstance, I happened upon a couple of books. The first one that really stuck out to me from the cover is Genius Cartel, about this young woman in the inner city of Los Angeles who ended up leading a revolution, so to speak, and had this natural ability to lead armies, so to speak. This natural charisma and mind that allowed her to organize her neighborhood and put up a formidable fight against the police. And when the government saw this, they didn't only want to stop her, but they wanted to use her innate strategic skills in order to further their goals. And so Genius Cartel, that's the story of that. I actually loved it so much I bought the trade paperback, which a friend right now is borrowing. That's one thing I love about collecting as well as the community, sharing books, sharing stories with people. That's why I started this channel. But I'm not going to let you, a stranger, via the internet, borrow my books. Don't ask. No, I'm just kidding. And so I really enjoyed this book, and then that built trust along with the Image brand. And then I discovered another book called Gasolina, which featured protagonists of Latino descent. And I loved it so much I bought the first two volumes and actually displayed them in the background of most of my videos. Very, very hip stuff. And that led to more and more obscure Image Comics / Top Cow Comics purchases. And as I started going down that rabbit hole, the name Todd McFarlane kept coming up to me. Because keep in mind, I'm a relatively new collector. I've been doing this for maybe 6 years now. But in 2019, as well established as Todd McFarlane was, it wasn't a name on my radar. I would see the action figures. I thought it was an action figure company. I knew it was Spawn because it had, the Michael Jai White movie, but I didn't know about the comics so much. I just knew it started in comics. And then I noticed I would see Spawn issues at my local comic book store, but still wasn't that interested. But I came across the documentary about Todd McFarlane and how he started Image, and the wealth of books that they had, and what he did. And I was like, well, I'm enjoying so many of these obscure Image Comics titles. I should go back to the book that started it all, and that book was Spawn. And so on my next trip to the comic book store, I picked up the newest available issue of Spawn, which was Spawn number 310. This is from 2020. I got it at Norse Comics and More, store that was in my local town. The guy actually runs another store now in the Eastridge Mall called Spellbound Apothecary Entertainment. Great store, go check it out if you're ever in Casper, Wyoming. But I picked it up to give it a try because I wanted to see the character that started my fandom in all of these obscure titles. And the cover did not disappoint. It's Spawn as kind of a ninja samurai doing a flying kick of some sort. Has an Asian aesthetic to the cover. You got the Spawn logo here on a banner going down behind him. And so the cover, I dug it right away. And the way it started and how topical it was, it really struck me. You see these scientists all around the world, they're dealing with a mysterious virus that is harming and killing people and trying to find the first vaccine. And so in 2020, with everything that was going on, this was very topical. And at first I thought, well, is this... Oh, and by the way, this is written by Todd McFarlane and the artist by Jim Munez. But it really drew me in with that topical setting. And, you find out this brilliant doctor has synthesized the first vaccine, and she's being congratulated by her colleagues, hailed as a hero. And then we see the first time I saw one of my favorite tropes and traditions in Spawn, the talking head segments. You have a straight news anchor from a company called CRN and their take on the news of the day about the virus. You have the next one is called Info Now, which is a liberal, almost like E-entertainment spin on the news. And then we have at the very bottom, Daily Insider, or is now known as, this character, his podcast is The Patriot. And he is very much an allegory of a Rush Limbaugh or Alex Jones. And each one of their takes, the straight news person is straightforward, not exaggerating anything, not trying to put a spin on anything. The other guy is blaming, again, a little bit more sensationalized, but still somewhat normal news. And then this guy is just conspiracy and yelling. And you see here that the different texts are highlighted in different colors and different size fonts, so you can actually almost hear the yelling and the manicness in this guy's delivery. I'll read you a little bit of the Daily Insider slash Patriot take on what's going on. They're poisoning us. I've been telling you about it for months now. This isn't, no, this is man-made, and worse than government, it starts at the top. From the president all the way through his administration at every level of every branch of government. First, they wanted us to wear masks so they could muzzle us. And now, they want as many of us to get tested as possible. This is a matter of your personal liberty. Don't give in to it. So you see, clearly, the allegory that this guy is based on. And so that was the second thing, the timeliness and the humor and clear allegories that you see. And then we cut to the scientist going home, putting her kids to sleep, lying down next to her husband and reading, and then you see green eyes in the background. And we find out that it's Spawn. And it's prefaced by, and the temperature in the room is suddenly dropped. By the time she does notice, it's too late. You see the green eyes in the shadow, and Spawn says, "What's keeping you awake tonight, Mila? Your conscience?" And again, they were, and then she says, "They said you might come someday." And so we see that this scientist, this altruistic, goody two-shoes scientist, is clearly not the person that she is portraying herself to be, and that her colleagues in society see her as. And so, as a brand new reader to Spawn, this was like instantly gripping for me. And to see your first appearance of your protagonist a few pages in, and he hasn't been mentioned, and he's stalking a seemingly innocent person, that's intriguing. And so, yeah, I was hooked from that exchange right there. The husband wakes up and shouts, "What the fuck?" before he is knocked out by a chain here. And then we see another one of my favorite tropes of the Spawn universe is these big 2-page panels. Absolutely love them. And we find out through their back and forth that she is not a human scientist but a demon. And her vaccine is actually something that is going to make this unknown virus worse and deadly to humans. And so he ends up killing her and sparing her husband and her children. That's as far as I'm going to go on that. But then we cut back to this first part here. And this is the part, again, because I'm coming at this for the first time since 2020, reading it today after the review I did of Spawn 369. Now, in that issue, I pointed out the thing that stood out to me was Spawn's vulnerability, especially around Jessica Priest, aka She-Spawn, and how he had been previously closed off and very, despite knowing he had to work with a team, very, very uncomfortable with that proposition of dealing with working with the team. And so when he returns back to the lair, his lair where he's gathering this team, we see that She-Spawn is in, up getting ready, and he sees her and they come across, and it's a very confrontational meeting. And while he is angry and gruff at her mere existence in his life, she is flirtatious. And like this exchange right here. "Hello, Al." He says, "Jessica, were you looking for something?" "No." "Are you sure?" Al Simmons says, "I'm sure." "Well, if you change your mind, let me know," Priest replies. And then Al Simmons says, "Get your hand off me. This isn't some damn vacation we're on. It's a war. the moment you lose focus in that, they will fucking bury you. And so you see that while they are clearly a team, he is very much not a team player. And in Spawn 369, she comes back with the same flirtatious attitude toward him, but he is not, he's almost receptive to it. And he even lets his guard down enough in that issue to be startled enough to fall out of his chair. Which shows that he trusts Jessica enough at this point in 369 to not worry that she is in the same location that he is. But here, you see that while they are allies, she is very much not trusted or wanted. And so we see a lot of growth from Al, and I think that this is a interesting dichotomy, because this is, like when I read 368 and 369, I had forgotten about these interactions in the very first issue of Spawn that I read, number 310. But 369 is really revisiting this dynamic and showing the growth of Al Simmons and his trust of She-Spawn, and her growth of knowing the battle that is at hand. And we meet a lot of important characters here. We meet Al Simmons, we meet She-Spawn, and in an effort to show her how serious that things are, he takes her via the dead zones to this abandoned warehouse that has had a lot of atrocities in it and dead souls, and where they lost their friend Nyx. Now, if you're currently reading Spawn, you know that Nyx, when she died, she became a part of Greenworld, and at the end of the battle for the Throne of Hell, Al Simmons installed Nyx as the king or queen of Hell, installed her as the to the throne, and that throne corrupted her. And now she is currently planning to, she actually has attacked her in an effort to get Al Simmons to her side, almost holding the Earth hostage. But now she has retreated back to the shadows and is trying to formulate another plan to take more to hell and Earth, or take more to heaven and Earth. And so that's where Nyx is at this point. But here she was their dead friend, and Al came to this location to show her out. His plan was to make an army of the souls that perished in this place. And he, you see him resurrecting these grotesque, mindless monsters for his army, and the last one that he resurrects is Nyx, which really puts a shudder in She-Spawn. I mean, it was kind of a, pardon my expression, it was kind of a dick move by Al Simmons. Really more of a way to traumatize and keep Jessica Priest at a distance, rather than showing his power. But you see Nyx here in her zombie form. And the reason I did this is it wasn't for seemingly this impending battle. It was a show of strength to Jessica. And so to see both of these characters have grown so much, and at the end they're talking about putting together this group. It says next issue, Overkill, Cygor, and more Gunslinger Spawn. And so we're seeing the formation of this team of Spawns, which we now know has their own comic book called The Scorch, which I believe is up to around 50 issues or so. But we're 50 issues into The Scorch. King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn is in the high 40s, maybe early 50s. We actually have a prequel series to Nyx called Black Ritual, the Book of Nyx, which I believe is currently on number 7. And even a prequel to Gunslinger Spawn called Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger, which is on issue, I think, 19 or 20. And so a lot of the books I'm reading right now got their start in this one issue. And so it was a very fortuitous issue for me to get ahead, because I was able to get enough background into the War for the Throne of Hell and what that was about, the Scorch, the introduction of these new characters. I actually got to see Gunslinger Spawn's introduction into the Spawn universe around the time of these books. And I'm also thankful for this issue because with the huge catalog of back issues, it may have seemed too intimidating for me to jump in at a different point because there was so much history. But since then, I've been able to go back and I've gotten a lot of actually the early issues, be it in facsimile form or even some, you know, maybe not in great shape, but very affordable forms through Nucadia.com. As Nucadia Comics, you can find them online at Nucadia.com. They are a great resource for comic books from the 90s and early 2000s. And I mean, for every time I've ordered from them, I have maybe spent 20 to 30 bucks including shipping, and I will get 20 to 30 books. So check out Nucadia.com. You're not going to find the newer stuff there, but no better place for old back issues. But yeah, this was my introduction into the Spawn universe and the book that got me hooked. And I think that Spawn number 369, the book I reviewed earlier today, will be a great starting off point because you have similar dynamics and you have a similar footing in the universe. We are, again, like this is part 2 of that new arc. What is this arc called here? Yeah, Consequences of Sin, Part 2. The Mysteries and Dangerous Army of Spawn continues to grow. First she Spawn Reaper, then Medieval Spawn. Medieval Spawn has its own book now, by the way. Now Gunslinger Spawn has made his presence known, but who is a hero and who is a villain? And so we are at the second book of this new arc here, preparing for the war for the Throne of Hell and the Scorch. And right now we are, again, 2 books into the new arc of Spawn. And we have this various, I mean, I knew what I'm seeing and 369 felt familiar, but I didn't make that connection. But when we're looking back at this book and 369, that dynamic focus on Al Simmons and She Spawn, it has to be intentional because there are too many similarities in the way that they're drawn and the way that they interact, and you can see a dichotomy of where She Spawn is more flirtatious and less serious, and Al is more trepidatious and untrusting, and now Al is very trusting and open to any form of communication from Jessica, and Jessica, while still maintaining her personality and humanity, is well aware of the seriousness of their situation with all they have gone through in the past 50 issues. So that's my introduction to Spawn. Let me guys know if you guys are reading Spawn. What was your introduction? What do you think of Spawn? How do you guys discover new books? Let me know in the comments. Check out Image Comics. They have some of the best stuff going right now. I actually read, I'm considering doing an issue. I mean, not an issue or a review on it, but I read the new issue of Exquisite Corpses. Exquisite Corpses number 6. It is a survival horror thing. Great art. Very, very deep lore and storytelling. You can get volume 1 of Exquisite Corpses trade paperback right now at a great price. And yeah, we're up to issue number 6. Great book if you're a fan of horror and survival genres. So I'll see you guys next time. Until then, keep reading them books. I'm out.